Next delegation.
Mrs. Parsons, representing the Business and Professional People's Alliance for Better Textbooks. Mrs. Parsons, are you the only one here, Mr. Priest?
Mr. Priest, go ahead with the presentation.
Okay.
Board of Education, we thank you for your attention. My name is Karl Priest, and I'm the acting chairman of the Business and Professional People's Alliance for Better Textbooks. That is the teachers chapter. I'll speak briefly, and I'll be followed by Mrs. Parsons. We're both active teachers in Kanawha County. We as a group and as individuals respect our educational system and believe we are going beyond normal obligations to help it. I am not here to criticize. The 4 of you that voted to return the controversial books have been adequately and suitably criticized. Neither am I here to dispute the logic of your decision. Hopefully deep down you have realized, or soon will realize, that this material is, to say the least, not in the best interest of children. We do want to commend you on the selection guidelines that you've adopted. We think they are very good. Our committee represents educators of both Christian and general points of view. I personally know several educators whose training and experience are second to none, who are deeply offended by the philosophy behind and much of the material in our present curricula. We have waited patiently for several months, despite colleagues who have vocally defended and worked actively toward implementing substandard material. We do not seek to force our doctrines on anyone, but we cannot sit idle and watch our system move away from any hope of neutrality. We owe it to the system, we owe it to our consciences, and we owe it to God to take a stand. The best thing that could happen would be the permanent removal of at least the 180 books ruled objectionable by the committee representing the protest movement. If that can't be immediately done, we offer the following questions and suggestions. I've been appointed to bring up 2 of them before you. Number 1, our committee should be the teacher's voice, working with parents to select alternate texts and material for parents who keep their children in Kanawha County schools and object to the current material. They should have the opportunity to purchase new material. Along with this, the board should make available to all parents a list of the 180 objectionable books and their levels. This would only be fair. Number 2, we would like to have an official statement answering this question. Will teachers be required to use curricular materials that violate their Christian and or moral standards? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. The next speaker representing the Business Professional People's Alliance for Better Text is Laura Parsons.
I would like to thank the board for allowing a teacher that feels this material that has been selected for our educational system is not the best educational system for our children. And believe me, it takes guts to stand up here before your superiors and express your feelings when no one has bothered to ask teachers how they feel, other than ACT that has attempted with some of their delegates to represent nearly 3,000 teachers in Kanawha County. Our educational system has always presented the more positive aspects of life, and I'm going to use some of the subjects that I work with, that I teach and work with my children, to give you examples. When I teach health and trying to improve and encourage health habits, we've always accented that we need to eat the proper foods, develop suitable body fitness programs, promote a good care of teeth, and so forth. Have we tried as health teachers to present a negative outlook? Do we tell children to eat candy? Do we tell children that they're to get up in the morning and eat the wrong kinds of breakfast foods? In education, we have always tried to present the positive viewpoints. In writing, as a teacher, how do we as teachers, and you, if you are on the board and have worked with children, we ask that children hold their pencils in a certain way. We ask that they try to sit in a certain manner during a directed writing lesson. Why do we do this? Because we're trying to get the best, we're trying to improve our children to make them productive, self-supporting citizens, to bring out the best qualities that we as teachers possibly can. By fostering negative ideas, what are going to be the end results? In phys ed, and I teach phys ed in my school, I constantly try to stress to the children how to do certain type of exercises. When they're doing the windmill, I try to teach them to use their muscles, to use what they have. This has been a positive outlook in our educational system. Our objectives are, as teachers, are to improve and promote the best way of doing things. I want you to think for a minute about the many children in Kanawha County who do not have an ideal home life, children whose parents neglect them, where there's cursing in the home, children where their parents drink and they seldom get a pat on the head, and the homes where both parents are working and the parents do not get time to sit down and talk with their children. By giving these, in the past, our educational system has always been able to give children hopes and dreams that they can have a better life. Now we're giving them negative outlooks. Maybe your children, the lady that just spoke, has an ideal home life, but here we're giving them material that does nothing to show that life can be better, can be different. I'm asking you as board members, are you asking me as a teacher to take the dreams and hopes of my students that do not have that ideal home life and present the seemingly shady side of life, offering them no hope for a better tomorrow and a better future? This is who I'm talking for. It's not the home in South Hills where maybe they have everything. It's for other students in Kanawha County that do not have this type of home life. I love my country. Granted, life in the United States is not perfect by any means. Like any system, good or bad, both evil and good does exist. But our form of government and our culture is the best there is in the world. Where else can an individual express his feelings and thoughts as here in America? And I think the textbook controversy is a very good example of people being able to express themselves in a free society. How else can we accumulate and thank our country by living and having the comforts that's common to our everyday life? There is definitely a breakdown of law and order in our country, a breakdown of high-quality morals. I think the Watergate issue proves this when the President of our United States, which has affected every member in this room. How do we reward him? We give him a pardon. We offer him something like $800,000 a year. While textbook protesters are fined $1,000 and thrown in jail for 60 days. In the Charleston Daily Mail, on the editorial page, there was an article that deals with a breakdown of law and order in the United States, and the person that wrote it was Mr. Jenkin El James, and he talks about how in our judicial system that there is a breakdown of law and order, and even with overwhelming evidence, people are let off. And he goes on to cite examples in California, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Michigan. And in Michigan, the judge was so furious because the victim was let off, even at the evidence of overwhelming evidence that was put before the jury. They were let off. And here is some of his reasons that he's giving for this breakdown. He says that 25% of government student loans will be welched on. He says that films on like Superfly, in which narcotic peddlers is pictured as an abnormal Superman. And we are beginning to see the enormity of steeping a whole generation in video violence and the results of Hollywood's progression from the flawed hero and the noble outlaw to the anti-hero. He says that people can be conditioned to save or destroy their civilization. Mass communication simply speed and intensify the process. Who really thinks that young America is being conditioned for the survival of a decent, orderly, and just nation? In today's society, dragging the flag through the mud and burning one's draft card is applauded by many in our society. And even in our Charleston Daily Mail, here is another article. And it makes me feel, when I get up and have my kids in the morning do the one precious thing that I love, saluting the flag. We don't always sing the national anthem, but we do sing other songs, patriotic songs, and other little songs that go along with it. These things almost make me feel guilty, and I resent things being written like this in the newspaper. Most Americans have been brought up to esteem patriotism as the hallmark of their citizenship and good fortune. They were brought up or trained in this value because their parents and teachers wanted it that way. They wanted a generation of Americans conditioned to loyalty and duty. They did not want a generation educated to think freely about the conflicting values of patriotism and disloyalty and fall by error into the latter. The mechanics of this indoctrination are familiar to everyone, and I quote, the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem, the salute to the flag. I feel a sense of pride when I am able to stand up with my students and salute my flag. Not that I think it's a piece of material, but it's what it stands for. When I see Old Glory waving high on top of the office building at Union Carbide and the chemicals, it makes me feel proud that I live in a country like we live in. I'm going to talk for a minute about the racial issue, which was never brought up in this textbook matter until NEA Representative Laura Wynn came and brought it up, and then some other groups that felt like they were lagging behind jumped on the bandwagon and brought these issues in. I, for one, think textbooks should be representing more multi-ethnic cultures, but I think, too, that they should not scrape the gutter. If you tell me,
You have
Board
2
of
minutes to
Education,
conclude.
okay, Board of Education, if you're going to take someone in to show you your house, you're going to pick the best parts to show. I want to pick the best parts to represent different cultures in these textbooks. These are some things that I think that we need to think about as a teacher out in the field and you as Board of Education members. And this goes on to about the law that we adopt new textbooks every 5 years. Why was a law or laws adopted which says that we have to adopt new textbooks every year, every 5 years? Maybe we have a book that does not suit our educational needs. Why not have evaluations and let the teachers know how they think and feel? Maybe at the end of the year we have decided that it isn't suitable education material. Why should we keep it for 4 more years? Why, maybe at the end of 5 years we have a book that is so good that we want to keep it for some more years. Why do we have a law that says we're going to consider new adoptions? The second thing I want to talk about is that I think that our Board of Education should hire a full-time paid curriculum committee. One of the reasons we're in this situation today is because teachers, whom are one of the busiest people there are, is expected to go over, and I heard that there was approximately 2,000 books that they had to consider. I have been going over 3 series of books now for 3 months trying to do my job. I think if we had a full-time paid curriculum committee that had nothing to do but take care of the textbooks, I think this would maybe solve some of our problems. The third thing is, we as teachers, and this is our teachers committee, have taken a stand publicly on these textbooks, and as a while ago someone said that the public has lost faith in the Board of Education and in the teaching system. Since we have taken our stand, we would like for board members other than Alice Moore to have us as representatives, teacher representatives, to serve on the Intermediate Text Selection Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. That your time is up.
I have some questions,
She
Mr.
has a question.
Kinsella.
Mr. Moore has a question.
I have a question to direct to you or to Dr. Underwood. It is my understanding that the teachers to serve on the curriculum committee are to request to serve, and we select our representatives or the teachers to serve from among those who have turned in requests to serve on the curriculum committee. Is that right?
You know, we've got so many committees, I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Well,
The
I'm talking about this committee that
The
that we are now.
subcommittee, the selection committee,
What is it? What committee is it? The one we appointed or not appointed?
the one that's going
we
into action
appointed.
now?
Right.
Yes.
screening
We
committee.
haven't.
The screening committee, right, okay.
We've sent nothing out for teachers yet until we get through this today. I think Mr. Kittle's ready to put it out on hotline as well as
Okay.
administrative memo tomorrow morning.
For the screening committee. And when that goes out, then we will select teachers from among those that apply for the positions. Okay.
Do we have any other delegations?
I have one question for Mr. Priest. Could you come back up, Mr. Priest? In your suggestion on curriculum, you suggested that the committee the review committee, the 7 people on the review committee that opposed these books, be used to select alternate texts that could be used.
No, that's
would you
not-
rephrase that? How?
That's not correct. I asked that we teachers who have publicly taken a stand against these books be allowed to work with the parents of the protest to select alternate books for those people who choose to stay in the system.
Well, if our November the 8th board meeting, which frankly the minutes never did get correctly printed by the news media, I would like to have some quiet, Mr. President, if we're going to hold a board meeting here. In order to balance and update our supplement reading of the elementary language arts program, we purchased an additional series for use by our children who, by parental authority, as stated, do not want to use the DCE series as supplement. This series is to be selected from the state multiple list. A parent committee will work with the present textbook committee in selection, and I think we informally agreed to use those 7 people because Mr. Staton, I believe, volunteered that, didn't he?
Yes, this
Dr.
was the
Underwood?
parents that, it wasn't the teachers though, Mr. Stump, it was the
You're
parents.
speaking of the teachers.
Yeah, I think he.
I
aren't
think
you, Mr.
that's
Priest?
rates merit.
You say they're going to purchase new materials? Did I understand you correctly?
We have to, for those who do not want to use the other material.
Was that motion passed as
Oh, yes.
that we would have to purchase even if we don't need it? Because I think many of the teachers are saying we don't need the book on the elementary level, have never needed it, and there's no point going out and purchasing more.
We've known that there is a controversy on that, quite frankly, isn't there?
We agreed to
And that's why
provide.
it's in the library. I don't think it's being used.
Is there any other question?
I have some
But
questions.
that
I don't
has
know if
merit,
this relates
Mr. Priest.
exactly. Some things that need to be cleared up, Mr. Kinsolving, that are not exactly on the agenda that do relate to this that I'd like to discuss.
Delegation to hear it
Let's
yet,
take it in
unless,
new business.
Let's
Well-
take this up under,
All right, I'll bring it up under new business.
our next delegate